Welcome to the Spinnin Backfist MMA show presented by Barstool Sports. It is Robbie Fox, Big Ev, and Jack Mack, as always, today with a special interview with Jon Anik. It's an awesome interview. Such a good guy, one of the best brains in the sport. It's just fun getting to pick his brain.
He's the man.
Gave us a lot of time.
A lot of
thoughtful answers.
A lot of interesting stuff. I was just saying, Ev, he's the kind of guy who's media trained, but not afraid to say how he also really feels.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a professional talker.
He's the best.
He's
His voice is his absolute business. Speaking of business, we got some business to get to before the interview. That is Game Time. The Game Time app gives the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. It's incredibly easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets to something like maybe UFC this weekend.
NFL playoffs, NHL is going on, NBA.
Next weekend, yeah.
Game Time, make 2026 the year of Game Time.
Concerts, comedy, everything.
Comedy.
Fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. They're not hitting you over the head with fees later. That's very helpful. And you can save even more when you choose a section and let Game Time choose the seats. It's a new ticket deal. You're going to be snagging these tickets before everyone else. College football going on right now. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code BACKFIST for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code BACKFIST for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Now let's get into this interview with Jon Anik. All right, welcome back to the Spinnin Backfist MMA show. We are joined once again by Jon Anik. It is great to have you back on the show. We're honored to have you as a recurring guest on the program, and we're obviously here to talk about the upcoming Paramount debut for the UFC.
Pleasure's all mine. You know, I was on episode 3 of Pardon My Take, and they gave me a t-shirt that said recurring guest. And I'm thrilled to be a recurring
You're
guest.
way more honored with Spinnin Backfist.
Way more honored.
Pardon my take.
Robbie Fox to my left.
You were you were the go-to MMA expert for Pardon My Take, literally second week of the show.
It's crazy to think back to that time and to think about where the sport is right now. And obviously you've been aligned with the sport for a long time. And I think for all of us who celebrated the Fox deal and celebrated the ESPN deal, it's nuts to think that we're now on a third major player in the span of, 12, 13 years.
How much earlier did you hear about the Paramount deal opposed to the public?
I know nothing.
Yeah, because from the public's point of view, it seemed like it really came down to the last second.
What I can tell you is that I felt as though Netflix really had an appetite for 5 or 6 of these things, but I'm not sure that they necessarily wanted to clear 13 numbered events. And it seemed as though Paramount Plus came in with an offer that the UFC couldn't refuse. I feel like ESPN was pretty convicted that they would retain a portion of it. And here we are, but it's exciting. I just moved from Florida to Connecticut, right? I like change. I'm excited by change. And I think this is a good way for us who have been on the hamster wheel for a while to push the reset button. I don't even know what type of bells and whistles you guys are going to see on January 24th. I assume we'll have new graphics, a new music package, but I'm excited to see the format as much as you guys are.
What's the transition for you like? Like, is it just all the same, or what's like different, new behind the scenes people, what's...
So I found out today that Kate Scott is hosting the desk. So is she going to begin the numbered event broadcast and throw it to me, or am I still beginning the show with my lunatic Dateline Las Vegas? I mean, I'm hope she's not stealing my thunder, but I don't know. But part of me is thinking, hey, if I'm going to have a desk host doing a lot of this heavy lifting, that's absolutely fine by me. But I don't know exactly what the TV format is going to look like. I mean, we're always cognizant of pacing and trying to make this thing as ingestible and listenable as possible over 8 hours, right? Which is a pretty obnoxious length for a sporting event. But I don't know. I'm excited as you guys are. But often I find out the news, not unlike you guys. I found out the Kayla Harrison news the same time everybody else.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's brutal. Obviously, it's a great card outside of that. Patty the Batty, Pimblett, and versus Justin Gaethje main event. Huge fireworks, big fight feel in Vegas. I'm sure we're going to get Sean O'Malley on this card. Upgrading Sean O'Malley to the co-main event here just felt right. It was like any other card, you lose a co-main event like this, you start scrambling for how do we replace it. On this card, you could say, it's good enough. We could just bump Sean up.
No, you're right. And when you have a guy like Umar Nurmagomedov, so far down the card, I think he's one of the top 10 best pound for pound fighters in the sport. Yeah, I think the O'Malley elevation makes sense. And, a lot of fans felt as though Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes should have been the main event. But I do believe in terms of this sport and a fight that can deliver in every realm of mixed martial arts, Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett is about as bulletproof as it gets. They both know their way around a microphone. They're both hugely compelling with really every action. And I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Are you aware how much of the little Barstool grudge match in the main event for us?
Yeah.
We personally have no beef with Justin Gaethje, but the boss man has gotten a little
Dave,
online scuttlebutts with him. And Paddy's obviously still our guy.
Yeah,
He's not signed with us.
Yeah.
He's our guy. We love Paddy.
So I absolutely love Paddy Pimblett. Now, Justin Gaethje and I go a little bit further back for obvious reasons, but Paddy Pimblett, and I've said it before today as I've made my rounds in New York City, and I'm sure you guys agree, he is a master orator, right? I get paid to talk. He's a better talker than me, right? Conor McGregor is the guy that I think all talkers will be judged by. Chael Sonnen was great. A lot of his stuff was scripted, right? But you can ask Paddy Pimblett any question, right? And you're getting an authentic, thoughtful, comedic response that is magnetic and dynamic. Like, I'm all about the guy. I don't want to hear anything about his candidacy here. He's 7-0 in the UFC. He's a near 3-1 favorite to beat Justin. So lean into the betting line if you don't think he deserves the opportunity. The kid's done everything the right way. He could have got to the UFC at 21 years of age, could have come at 23, wanted to be a proper athlete when he got here. So I have no space, as you can tell, for Paddy Pimblett criticism, but Gaethje is a man who I'm very close with, and I'm excited to see what he can do with this chance against a guy who's favored to beat him.
When you go in there and obviously see matchups and you have relationships with these guys, and obviously there's guys that you have better relationships with than others, how do you kind of put yourself into the unbiased guy that we hear often? Because obviously if you meet people, sometimes you'll like someone better than somebody else. How do you manage to kind of remove yourself from the bias?
I like the question. Thankfully, at this stage of my career, there are interpersonal relationships on both sides of nearly every fight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm close with either a coach or a fighter, so I feel some sort of personal connection. As soon as they hit the tunnel, all of that goes out the
Has
window,
to,
you know. And not that I'm a play-by-play announcer. I'm not an analyst. I'm not a color commentator, right? So it's not necessarily my job to criticize my dear friend and broadcast partner, Dominic Cruz, if I don't think his footwork looks as fast as it did in his prime, even though maybe I've said that to him privately.
Yeah.
But when Daniel Cormier is fighting Stipe Miocic, and DC is the guy who I've called more fights with than anyone, maybe subconsciously I'm thinking, I got to give Stipe his due here in this fight. And maybe I lean even a little bit more that way because I'm trying to overcorrect. And I think that is probably what happens. But when Stipe knocked out DC, and I screamed from the top of my lungs, you know, Stipe exacts his revenge. You can tell by that call. And some people think that's like my best call ever. And it's my best friend getting knocked out. You know, I shouldn't say he's my best friend, but my dear friend and colleague is getting knocked out. And I'm in the moment trying to give historical context and give you a call that's going to withstand the test of time and give Stipe his flowers. And I'm not thinking about the fact that the guy who I've broken bread with 300 times is twitching on the
Do you write the kind of finishes that could possibly happen, or is it true?
I've never planned a fight ending call. The one time I've even thought about it was when Demetrius Johnson was chasing down Anderson Silva or someone, and I had this word immortality in my mind. But no, I find that, you know, the most organic calls or the best calls are the ones that are the most organic. My predecessor just had a token line that he would throw out there at the end of every fight. It's all over. And I understand people saw some value in that and some people pine for that. But, you know, I'm trying to give it real historical context. So like when Ilia Topuria, I didn't have a man of his word in my head, right? But he is celebrating the win over Charles Oliveira the fucking night before, right?
Yeah.
And then he knocks him out. And what pops into my head? A man of his word, you know? And that call has much more meat than it is all over with respect to Goldie, right?
Yeah.
It actually has context. So some are better than others, you know? Like I remember Michael Chandler made his UFC debut against Dan Hooker, and I'm like, he sticks the landing, and then he falls. He didn't stick the landing. So like they're not all perfect, but just being in the moment and trying to give it some sort of context, right? Like the Justin Gaethje Max Holloway, right? What's the most important part of that call with 1 second to go, right? So the play-by-play announcer of all the things in my head, I see the clock with 1 second to go. That's a big part of the call. And thankfully, you know, that was part of the fight ending call.
What was your favorite call this year?
It's a new year. I haven't called a fight. No, it's hard. You know, I certainly feel like a man of his word was one that people appreciated because he essentially called his shot and said he was going to do, and said he felt bad that it was going to be Charles. So
yeah.
But I guess for me, it's just trying to get in and then get out, give Joe and Daniel a chance to provide their analysis. But really, when you see some of these calls being repurposed, just to make sure that there's some meat there, you know. When Jan Blachowicz won the title, it was a real simple call. Like, Poland, your guy got it done. But, you know, that's something that Poland, you know,
see him,
has.
his plane land back in Poland, and everyone shows up to greet him.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
I remember, I love that was your, like, the I think I might have said it to you last time we interviewed, the Poirier when he knocked out McGregor call.
Yeah.
The Lafayette, Louisiana. There's something like that.
Yeah.
And just to the root of where it all started that I appreciate about it. I think the fans do too.
Yeah. And that call, I think, started, you know, Dustin Poirier has knocked out Conor McGregor. And sometimes that's really all you need. Right?
Yeah,
like,
it's just
Conor.
it's a shocking sentence.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it's fun. I mean, it's you know, you think about like how you would handle other big moments in other sports. And now I have all this experience capping these big fights, but there was a time when I was not capping any title fights. I was just capping main events, thinking, you know, how would I handle a title fight where the call really is going to matter in history? And yeah, I guess we've had more hits than misses, but there have been some bad ones too.
Do you have some that like after it comes out of your mouth, you're like, I don't like that one?
Well, I guess not so much for the fight enders. But yeah, I mean, when you're judged on every utterance over 8 hours, you know, and there are certain things that you would love to be able to take back. You know, at one point, I think I said when Nina Nunes was pregnant with their second child, that, and if you're wondering at home, those are actually Amanda's eggs inside of Nina this time. The last time around, it was Nina's eggs. But I guess when I'm sitting there looking at the greatest MMA athlete of all time, I think it's perhaps somewhat interesting that there's more of Amanda's DNA in the second child than the first one, but maybe that doesn't need to be on a live telecast. So yeah, I mean, maybe I would take that back, but
what do you think of the memes that have come out? The most recent one is from it was Quillan Salkeed against Nazareth, and I think you said his parents put him into MMA or wrestling because he was overweight, but his parents owned a bakery, and then boom, man, one of the best knockouts of the year.
That's a great line.
It was, but his parents owned it, and now it's truly a meme. There's people on Instagram Reels they'll do when you're shadow boxing, but your parents owned a bakery.
It's crazy.
Parents owned a bakery as you were growing up, and they faked themselves getting knocked out. It's almost, obviously people respect you so much for those great calls, but there's also these, I don't want to take away anything from, obviously there's a guy that got knocked out and then a guy who put on an amazing performance, but these meme calls.
Yeah.
Too.
So the human interest stuff, right? And trying to tie that in during fights is challenging. Unlike football, where maybe you have a break between plays or a whistle in basketball, I'm trying to figure out mid-round if I have an opportunity to tell a 10 or 12 second story. So Quillan Salkeed and Nasrat Haqparast are fighting, and we've probably told this story before, but you know, Nasrat was a really fat kid.
Yeah.
And I was sort of saying, but you know, his parents owned a bakery. So like if my parents owned a bakery, I'd be banging blueberry muffins every day too. But Quillan Salkeed, his parents didn't own a bakery, right? And I don't know if you guys know this, but this is the greatest thing to happen to me in my entire broadcasting career. Quillan Salkeed got an angry baker tattooed on his fucking foot.
He got an angry baker tattoo because of the call?
To commemorate the call.
Wow.
Oh my God.
That's incredible.
So a lot of people, somebody sent it to me on social media. So a lot of people thought that it was Quillan Salkeed's family that owned the bakery. It was Nasrat's family. And he's so the angry baker. And now it's immortalized forever on Quillan Salkeed's
Is that the first
foot.
call that was immortalized with
as far as I know? I mean, certainly we got,
some fan out there.
Yeah, I mean, I like my face on their fucking body or the Anakin Florian. Worst had the Anakin Florian podcast logo. I think I'm probably getting that removed at this point in time. But yeah, that's the only time that I can remember that. And yeah, that feels very tributary and very amazing. And I can't wait to see Quillan.
Yeah, I know you got to see in person. Yeah.
It's a good point. His parents did own a bakery.
But I missed the knockout. See, that's the other thing too, is that Paul Felder, one of my broadcast partners, he wants to look me in my eyes when he's talking, right? there are other broadcast partners I have that will never lock eyes with me the whole show. Joe and I
on Netflix, you told your broadcast.
You told the guys you can
are
look
allowed
at
to
me.
Look at me.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That was a very.
I loved that
I
moment.
invite
You can look at me. Yeah.
it's
You can
okay,
look at me.
guys. I don't bite over here. But yeah, so when Quill and Sal, I'm turning to Laura Sanko and I'm being like, yeah, he's kind of fat, but like, his parents own a bakery. And then I look back up and it's like just in time. But like when Leon Edwards knocked out Kamaru Usman, it's the same thing. I just in the nick of time, I sort of irritated with this moral victory narrative. And so I look to my right and I'm like, yeah, but that's just like not the cloth from which he is cut. And then I was going to say, I mean, that is a dejected corner over there. Like I start the next part of the analysis and then the knockout happens. So when you're trying to be present in the booth with your partners, you got to be real careful that you're not looking away, especially in this sport. So.
All right, got to cut off this interview real quick to tell everyone about DraftKings. Not only for UFC either. NFL playoffs, let's go. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, makes every moment feel bigger. A running back cuts through the line, a strip sack flips the field, a tight end hauls in the kind of touchdown grab you all talk about for years. Postseason games shift fast, and with DraftKings live betting options, you can stay right in the moment. For guys like us who don't have a dog in the fight anymore, we don't have teams in the playoffs.
I haven't had a team in the playoffs since 2010.
There we go. DraftKings will make it interesting.
Great.
For you. They've got your back as well. Early exit protection. It is awesome. If the player in your eligible NFL prop goes down at any point in the first half, you'll still get paid in cash. New customers bet just $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. DraftKings Sportsbook. Every drive, every play, every moment. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code BACKFIST. Code BACKFIST will get you $300 in bonus bets if your bet, just $5, wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. What do you think of the Netflix experience, like doing a broadcast that big, that long with different broadcast partners, with different, obviously, production partners?
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you?
It was amazing. It was a spectacle. It was certainly the biggest sporting event that I had ever been assigned. Mike Ricci, who produced a lot of my UFC events, was still the voice in my ear,
Nice.
So that was a good thing. And Zach Candido was a big part of that production as well. So a lot of my marching orders came from the same people, but a lot of play-by-play guys were considered, and I hadn't called a boxing match since 2010, the WBC heavyweight title fight, Shannon Briggs and Vitaly Klitschko. So I didn't think I was getting the shot. So yeah, I was thankful to get the opportunity, and I love Max and Andre, despite what a lot of people want to make of that moment we had at the end of the telecast. But yeah, I think it was just it was a lot of anxiety. It was a lot of condensed preparation. I watched like the entire Terrence Crawford fight library in a span of 3 weeks, because I had not been watching boxing regularly, even though that was how I got my UFC opportunity as a boxing radio journalist. But it was amazing. Netflix has so many great people. And I just hope to get a shot again, a couple times doing some boxing this year.
What's your process for a guy who hasn't fought in the UFC yet, and you're calling him? I think a perfect example would be Josh Hokett this weekend, right? You haven't called one of his fights, I don't think. What will you do? You'll get all of the footage from the UFC and then watch everything?
So film study is a huge part of my process, but it's very dependent, right? So for example, I'm doing UFC 324 and UFC 325 back to back. So I can tell you guys right now, I'll probably watch 10 or 12 hours less film for UFC 325 because I'm in a back-to-back and I can't turn the page really until Sunday or Monday. Whereas for UFC 324, by the time I show up there, I might have prepped 12 of the 28 athletes. But with a new fighter, a lot of my charge is background information, finding out the family history, what drove him to fighting. Film obviously is hugely valuable. Ideally, you can find some regional film from really early and then the last fight. One thing Brian Stan, one of my former broadcast partners, used to love doing was watching the UFC debut, then a middle career fight, and then their last fight. And it's amazing what some guys were in their debuts when they probably shouldn't have been on that type of proving ground. And then they get to that point in time. But for me, I use every hour I can. If the fight card gets delayed 5 hours from a power outage, there's always one more interview I can listen to or watch. And I can't tell you, not even shows with an audience as vast as yours, but when you'll see a random YouTube interview with a newcomer and there are 37 views, 3 of those are probably me clicking on that video interview during fight week. So yeah, just trying to find stuff as much as possible. And then when I wake up on show day, there are definitely a few newcomers or fighters with one fight who I might be light on, and I'll use those final hours to sort of get a little heavier on those athletes that maybe I don't have as much on, but we use every hour we can.
I'll say the fighter meetings get referenced a lot by all you guys. It feels like, who are like some of the like underrated personality guys? Because I think some are like obvious, like Strickland's like a wild guy, and some other guys are like very out there. Like, who are some guys that people like us that don't get that level of access wouldn't get to? Like, who would you say?
So it's
sneaky ones?
That's a great question. So Piotr Jan is sort of cool because you sort of get to see maybe him peel back some of his no nonsense nature and really be revealing. You know, Valentina Shevchenko gives us fucking nothing. You know, I mean, she is such a cold-blooded assassin that probably doesn't surprise you, that she is all about managing her energy expenditure, even when it comes to us. And Ilya Topuria is another guy who you better ask him a perfect question, because if it's a yes or no question, or a question that he can not be verbose about and be brief, he will be brief. Roman Dolidze is a guy who intimidates the fuck out of me. You know, Ian Machado Gary just comes down and sits on the table like he owns the place. You know, he's the only guy we actually have to cut off in a fighter meeting. Merab Dvalishvili is like just staring death in the face. I mean, it feels like he's going to perish in the chair.
Is there like an unspoken thing with some of the fighters that?
Oh, I cut Merab off. I'm like, just get him out of here. One time Ray Longo was like, let's get him out of here, you know? So yeah, I mean, sometimes we do the fighter meetings on Wednesday and they're in a much different weight cutting phase than they would be on Thursday. We sit down with Merab most oftentimes on Thursday, and somehow he gets a second win for that press conference. But the fighter meetings are great. You know, they really are the biggest part of our preparation, and they didn't exist when I joined the company. I would do phone calls and random things. I would get 3 or 5 minutes with every fighter after they signed the poster. And
when did they become a thing? Do you remember?
So Brian Stan, again, a guy who I learned a lot about preparation from, but he and I would call the fighters, and it just was inefficient. And oftentimes we weren't getting great things from the fighter. Maybe they're signing a poster, talking to us on the other end. And how much can you really maximize 3 or 5 minutes, you know? And I guess the transition probably happened 2018 or 2019. But even now, we can't sit down with 28 fighters.
Yeah.
So media day scrums are hugely valuable, but there's also only so many hours. Like Michael Morales had the longest media scrum I've ever seen before his last fight against Sean Brady. And I can't possibly do all of that and my fighter meeting. So it's intense, you know, it's intense.
How long would you say they usually last, like on average?
They're scheduled for 15 minutes. Ian Machado Gary were peeling off the table about 22 minutes in. But also I can get the sense that that some fighters maybe don't want to be there. And I always lead the fighter meetings. I have certain holes on my card that I need to fill. But if I get the sense that they don't want to be there, I'll pass the baton to DC pretty quickly. Yeah. Khamzat Chimaev doesn't, you know, show up a ton, you know, so if he's done some media, then thankfully I can ingest that. But yeah, there's a lot of fighters who either don't want to be there or don't give us a lot, and that's okay.
Yeah. Have you ever done 2 back-to-back numbered events like this, like back-to-back weeks?
So probably 5 years ago, we did a pay-per-view in Abu Dhabi, and then Madison Square Garden was the next week. So it's daunting. I have called UFC events on back-to-back nights, so I sort of lean into that experience. There was a time around UFC 200 when we did 3 live events back-to-back Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Awesome, yeah.
So Stan and I called Thursday, Friday, and then Goldie and Rogan called Saturday.
Was that when we had Namajunas Van Zandt?
Yeah.
Crazy guts.
And I want to say maybe the Thursday night might have even been Eddie Alvarez and Rafael Dos Anjos for the lightweight title on Fight Pass or whatever it was.
And that was Joey Diaz losing his mind on a fight experience as well. It always gets reposted.
Yep.
I'm saying he's the fucking guy. Yeah. I told you.
Yeah. But that was one of the first title fights I got the chance to call, I think, because it was on Fight Pass. But so that's something that I lean into when I have an assignment like this. But no, the biggest challenge is just that Thursday, Friday before UFC 324, I'm going to have to do all the UFC 325 voiceovers. So I'll leave the 324 fighter meetings, and instead of being wholly focused on 324, I'll voice
videos and stuff.
So I'll voice 325 that night. But I'm also excited to see what this Paramount Plus deal is going to hold. I mean, I'd imagine structurally most of the show is going to stay the same. But when I took over for Goldie in 2017 or whenever it was, and I saw how much stuff was put on tape, I said, can we do that live? You know, like the locker room stuff.
Yeah.
I still have to put like the billboards on tape, like UFC 324 is brought to you by. But if it was up to me, I know they're trying to save my voice at times, but you know, there were times in the past where when you'd see two fighters in the locker room, they would lay that to tape beforehand. I'm like, no, you know, what if he's picking his, like, I want to do this all live as much as possible. And
look at catching Mike Tyson with no pants on.
I swear to God, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, that's
doing that live. Mike Tyson turns around, his butt cheeks on air. Like, that's an all-time moment.
No, so I can, you know, I've done a lot of content live to tape or on tape.
You'd prefer to do it all live.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Have you ever had an issue with your voice on, like towards the end of a pay-per-view where you're like, I'm running this thing into the ground?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain times where when I was doing the post-fight show for ESPN, I would say I don't have too many bullets left in the chamber. It's funny, my twin brother, who has about 5 years of experience now, but he was so sick for a dirty boxing show a few weeks ago. And I'm sort of thinking, like, I've been so fortunate over 20 years doing this to not having experience. But UFC 295 was probably the sickest I've ever been for a show. And I just slept during the day. It was Adesanya and Parade at Madison Square Garden. And I just napped. And there was a Bellator show in 2009 in California. And I was so ill that I felt like if my voice could get through that show, I could do anything. But there's no calling in sick, you know? I know a lot was made of Tony Romo last weekend and called an event and maybe his performance was subpar, but I don't have any backup on the ground. And yeah, Rob, to your point, unless... Like Michael Bisping, I believe, had a show where his voice just wasn't there. If my voice can't go, then I'll have to be replaced. But there's no calling in sick to this gig.
No, it ain't happening.
Are you afraid of being Wally pipped? Or is it more just...
No, I mean, I feel like I've been the scab my whole life. You know, I've been a fucking replacement player. So I'm very confident in my ability. And I challenge all the guys chasing me to come get it.
Yeah.
You ever come out of a specific event and just be like, I just crushed that? Because I think I'd imagine for you, especially how long you're on air, you almost get in like a flow state where you don't even remember half the stuff you said. You ever have one that's saying that you're like, you just like take the headset off and you're like, man, I had my fastball was 99 on the black today. I just had it. I had my stuff. Curveball was falling off the table.
There's got to be events.
This podcast offers up the best questions.
This stuff I think about. If I were you, I'd be like, man, I just nailed that shit.
So, you know, what I can definitely speak to a few times, like during a main card, maybe I'll start to flub a few times and I'll think to myself, like, dude, you were fucking perfect on the prelims when nobody was watching. And now you're going to just stumble all over your goddamn self on the main card. What's happening? You know, but no, I think there are times where I know that a fight ending call has been really good. When Carlos Prates knocked out Leon Edwards, you know, I just really felt like that call was good. And I think Michael Morales, the call against Sean, you know, I just felt like those calls were really coming together, but I never necessarily know what the feedback's going to be on the back. So I don't get a lot of feedback from my producers or Dana or any of those guys. It's really the fans that drive me and build me up. And Joe Rogan, honestly, is one of my biggest supporters. But more often than not, it's more about thinking that I'm in that flow state in the prelims and maybe not that I'm gassing on the main card, but I'm just not as clean. And it really refocuses. I'm like, dude, fucking
where's the stuff that we don't even recognize? It's all like you're recognizing it, but we don't know.
Where do you think the product is at this moment? A lot has been made about that. I think that just comes with the territory of getting more fans. But sometimes people say, oh, it was better 10 years ago. Or is that just something that we are going to see? There'll be people in 10 years that say right now is the best moment.
Another great question. I think it's twofold, right? The television product is one thing, and then the mixed martial arts themselves is another thing. Khamzat Chimaev's performance against Dricus du Plessis was one of the sickest, craziest things I've ever seen in my life. I am blown away. And then I get off the air and there's this avalanche of criticism that people were bored. And I'm thinking, man, this is just not what I expected to walk off the air to. So I think the sport in a lot of respects has never been better. It's never been more high level, but these grapplers and these wrestlers aren't for everybody. In terms of the television product, yeah, I mean, when I showed up in 2011, we didn't have a pronunciation guide, so I feel like a lot of strides have been made.
Probably
that's basically
number one
this show.
sport.
We don't have a pronunciation guide.
Probably number one sport that you need.
We need it, right?
It's actually funny, brother, because just we're going next week and just signing up for like the Zuba Boxing and the media credentials. and under them they have all the the audible pronunciations. And I never looked at it before, and I clicked on I was a Gaethje was at the top, and I swear I was fully expecting to be you saying the name.
right.
And it was themselves.
Yeah.
It was Justin Gaethje saying his own name. I clicked on it fully. I was like, Anik must be the one who does all these. I was dead serious.
Well, I
shocked that it wasn't you.
When I saw NBC and their football coverage, and I would love when the players would introduce themselves.
Yeah.
And so let's hear the way the fighters say it. Of course, sometimes they'll say their name a few different ways on the file, which can be somewhat problematic.
That has to be a mind fuck.
Yeah.
But I think our biggest challenge is the fact that our events are way too long. And we should have 10 or 11 fights instead of 15. And even if you want to make this broadcast 5 or 6 hours, and Hunter, I love you. Even if you wanted to make this 5 or 6 hours instead of 8, I'd be okay with it. But we ask a lot of our fans, even fans as rabid as yourselves, 8 hours times 41 Saturdays, right? So if I could affect change in one way, it would be and we have a lot of masters to serve, right? Television partners in different countries, a lot of different things, a roster north of 600, getting 50 fighters signed on the Contender Series every year, which I think is less than ideal. But if I could affect change in one way, and perhaps it's selfish because I'm a broadcaster that doesn't understand how we do back-to-back Super Bowls every time we crack a mic, I would just I would cut 150 fighters off the roster. I would do 10 fights a card and just make it a much more ingestible, palatable sporting event. Because Joe Silva, our Hall of Fame matchmaker, he would suggest to me that I'm wound tight a little bit, and I am, and I take the job maybe too seriously, but he would always say to me, don't forget to have fun, because this is the job you wanted. I want to see you having fun. But my job is intensive, and I think sometimes I have leaned more into the fun as I've gotten older, and gratitude and all those things, but I think it's so daunting that if it was 5 hours instead of 8, I'd be more in the fun business.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. And it's like you said, it's hard in this era of the business to implement that, I'm sure, with all the masters that you have to serve in that. But I think everyone would probably agree with that. A faster card, better fights.
I think fans would to an extent, but people complain about the Apex cards. We hear that all the time. And then
the Meta Apex.
Yeah, the Meta Apex. I apologize. But then there's this long gap, and all I see on MMA Twitter, MMA Instagram is where are the fights? Where are the fights? Do you want the Apex fights or not?
No, and this off season,
because I do. I'll take them every weekend.
We always say we would rather any fights than no fights.
But, me too. I just don't need it to be from 3 p.m. to 11:30.
No. I think
us covering it, betting on all the fights. It's a long.
And I work for the company. I'm the guy who people call promotionally hyperbolic and a shill, right? And I'm just telling you, when I say to my daughter, hey, will you watch the Patriots-Texans game with me for 3 hours this Sunday uninterruptedly? And she's like, yeah, Daddy, I will. I can't have that conversation about the UFC, maybe for the main card or for the last 3 fights or whatever. But
East Coast going to 1:30 in the morning too, and you're starting it.
When I'm watching a UFC fight night and I'm not working
it. 9 this weekend.
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
That's big.
We're making things a little earlier.
That's
that is
big.
huge.
I forgot about that.
But I don't want to miss a fight, but I miss the fight night prelims.
Of course.
Every week, because I just don't have the bandwidth because I procreated and I got 3 kids.
Yeah. And they're young. So it's like
I think a lot of UFC fans have kids,
Right?
That was a shot at the UFC fans. No one's procreating.
All right, cutting off the interview one more time because, fellas, you know what time it is. It's time to level up. And Blue Chew just dropped something crazy. I'm talking next level, championship belt, gold-plated energy. Blue Chew Gold is the newest innovation from the #1 chewable ED brand. This ain't your grandpa's little blue pill. No. It's the 4-in-1 beast that's setting the gold standard for performance. We're talking 2 ingredients for blood flow to keep that rocket pumping, mixed with apoformine and oxytocin to turn up arousal and connection with your brain and body. We're talking chemist stuff. We're talking real intricate.
That was a great job.
Turn it up.
Thank you.
That was his first try. By the way.
Those are big words.
I was learning to read here. This is peak passion and peak performance in a single tablet. If your bed could talk after this, it'd be asking you for a break. Make life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. Special deal for our listeners. Get 10% off your first month of Blue Chew Gold with code SPINNIN. That's promo code SPINNIN, SPINNIN. Visit BlueChew.com for details and important safety info. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the pod. John, thank you so much for coming in, giving us the time as always. It's just always great to pick your brain. You're one of the best brains in the entire sport.
Dude, you guys are thoughtful as ever. I'm excited you guys are going to be out there, and we'll see. I think, you guys are going to be surprised pleasantly with how this presents itself January 24th on Paramount Plus, and the price is right.
Oh my God, I know. We keep hammering that home. You're getting this for $10, $12, whatever it is. You're getting 8 or 9 pay-per-views for the price of one.
Yeah, I think it's what, 90 for the year?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was like 86.
It was 85, something like that.
The only thing it's always, speaking of gratitude, it's always great to be in the arena for a fight. But I am a little bit thinking, man, we're gonna miss the first ever Paramount card.
I didn't think
Obviously, we can watch it back because they have a great service that you can go back. But we're missing the first one live, and obviously we'll be on Twitter seeing what people are saying. But yeah, it's a new era, and it's really cool.
We get asked all the time
the Anik
about
headset
the
on
radios
sale.
In the arena because they used to exist. You know. And any other sporting that you go to, that audio is being piped in all the bathrooms and things like that. So yeah, there's things we could do, but I appreciate you saying that. It's always interesting to watch it back in terms of like when you flub and you watch it back and it's like, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Back. But when you're doing it, you're like, dude, you didn't smoke weed before the show. Tighten it up.
All right,
also,
Anik.
Pat's going to get it done?
I don't think so. I'm hopeful, but
wow.
Well,
I think they're going to get it done. I'm a Jets fan.
So I just have let a lot of noise in, and a lot of people believe that unit for unit, the Houston Texans defense is the best unit remaining on any of the remaining 8 teams in the playoffs. CJ Stroud just played the worst game of his entire career.
That's true.
So I think he's going to control the ball. And when Julian Edelman said the Patriots are a year away, I didn't lean into that, but when I went to the game last week and I watched them on the lines, and I just think they might be a year away, but I'm hopeful.
All right. Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Realistic.
Honest answer.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, John.
Thank you, boys.
Appreciate it. It was great.